Firstly, before I start, thanks to Pat for hosting, but thank you to the organisers of this great event. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Vanessa. Currently Global Director of UX at Dye & Durham. Dye & Durham's a legal tech company. We provide software solutions to lawyers and law firms. A bit about me, I'm a design leader, I'm a speaker, but ultimately I'm a bit of a problem solver. So I like to observe situations with people, with companies, and kind of work out, well, how can we solve this issue? So before we get started, and if you're like me, it's nearly around 12 o'clock, and I'm hungry, and I'm not really concentrating. So what we're gonna do is a little bit of a quiz. So what is the name of Shopify's design system? So hands up if you think it's A. All right, a couple of people. Hands up if you think it's B. All right, great. Definitely know you're in a design ops conference. So yeah, it's B, Polaris. And the last question, how many years did material design celebrate last year? Was it A, 10 years? In 2024, or is it B, 15 years? How many people think it's A, 10 years? Okay, yeah. How many people think it's B? Okay, it's actually A. There's no prizes, only glory. But yeah, it's A. So it's quite interesting. Design systems has been going on for like 10 years, right? Design ops as a function has probably been going on for a lot longer, but we're still having these kind of conversations. So why this subject that I've chosen? I think one of the things that I see, and we've spoken about it quite a lot today, is a lot of design systems fail. Sometimes, a lot of the time, when you do a design system or design ops, it's kind of like the side project that you're doing. You're doing this black ops side project, and you talk to a developer, and you're like, I want to do this thing, and then everyone gets excited, and then you get to the point of where you need funding, and it either fails and goes by the wayside and still becomes this black ops thing, or you get some funding. And what I want to talk about is that kind of funding bit, but also the aftermath, and how do you sustain that? So, quick story time. I previously worked at Kazoo, and when I wasn't the head of design ops there, but I was the head of UX. And it was the first time I've been in a company and they had like design ops as a thing, as a department. We were growing and scaling quite fast. So I think we had around 60 designers, combination of researchers, content designers, and product designers. And we had a design ops team. And they had a roadmap, they were focused on different things, they were growing. We had actually a head of design operations, which back then was quite new. But we also had governance meetings as well, so quite a mature design ops area. But then, age-old story, the layoffs happened, right? And like a lot of design teams, design operations was one of the first teams to go. And that department, the head of design ops went it kind of ended up being like this little small sub-team, kind of went back into black ops, basically. Quite a sad story. And then I think like after the aftermath of the layoffs, I was speaking to one of the directors of product who was in design reported into product. And basically, he said this. He was like, I didn't really understand the point of design operations after we had the design system. And I think with a lot of product people or people who don't actually know design, I would say, they kind of think, once you've done this, do we have to do it again? And you see that a lot with, once we've released a product, do we actually need to go back and improve it? Do we need to do anything? It's done. We've done the research, we've launched it, it's done. On to the next thing. And I think a lot of us in this room, we know it's never really done. There's always more things to do. But when I think about that story and what happened there, I feel like there's two elements that happened. I think one, design operations failed to demonstrate that ongoing value. And the second bit is it didn't actually evolve to meet the changing needs of the business. Because what happened is we went from extreme, really fast growth, And then we started thinking about profitability and talking about profitability. So everyone in the company had to have KPIs related to profitability. And design ops kind of just ended up in their little groove of things and didn't really see these kind of red flags that were happening in around the company. So we've heard this already today, but I think one of the things that what we should think about with design ops is think about it like a product. So how we do normal kind of product development, we should be thinking about design operations like that. So you're meant to be thinking about your stakeholders. Who are they? What are they interested in? But also think about design operations as iterations, not this thing that is kind of like one and done and then we run away. But if it is iterative, then what we should be doing is we should be talking about to our stakeholders and product people about those iterations and that roadmap. So what does that roadmap look like? What is the vision? And then lastly, think about those goals. So what is the goal of your design system in your organization? Why are you doing it? Is it setting out to do what you want it to do as well? And then if we want to expand that a little bit, so go into the principles, 4 Ps of service design, you want to think about your people, the processes, the products, and the partners, right? So the 4 Ps. So how do we actually demonstrate that ongoing value? What does that actually look like? I like to be really practical and talk about the how in a lot of my talks. So the first thing you want to do, like any kind of product, is almost like, who are your stakeholders? How well do you actually know them as well? Do you know them well? Are there some key people that you're not talking to? I think with design systems and being designers, what's really, really key and crucial is having those champions across departments. Because like John said, like design systems, design operation teams are normally like this one team, and they're not spread across the whole organization. So you need to have those champions across the organization. And I would take a step further and say you need to have champions that are outside of design, outside of product even, championing the design system and really, really understanding that design system, design ops. So the first thing you want to do is almost create a stakeholder map. Think about how much influence each stakeholder has. How much are they brought into the design system? You're going to have people who really understand design systems and design ops, and you're going to have other people who are just like, they don't even know. They just think design is about screens. That's all that they know. But also, how often should you be communicating with them? So how much face time should you have with them? And this map should be a living and breathing document. So if you are a design ops leader, you should be looking at this and referring to it all the time, or quite regularly, and updating it. So here's a little example of this. You don't have to use it, but it's a good example. So I like to define things through friendliness. So how friendly are they towards design ops? And then how much influence do they have as well? So the sweet spot ideal situation is you have everyone in the kind of top right-hand corner, and they're the ones that should be your visible champions, right? So in your plan, you almost want to double down on these people because they're the ones that get it, they understand it, they should be advocating for you throughout your organization. Then in the bottom right, you've got probably people who also get it, but they have low influence. So they're going to be people probably on the ground, probably within the teams. They're going to be your designers, maybe your engineers. But you want to capitalize on them to be the on-the-ground champions. So beyond your design team and your design people, you want other people to be talking about adopting the design system, design ops, why it's important, why it's key. And then in the top left-hand corner, these are the people that if you are a design ops leader, you need to be working on them. You need to have a plan with them. Some of them, you might have to have a bespoke plan, depending on the individual. But you really want to understand how, you really want to work out how you can turn them into your visible champions. And it's going to be a multi-pronged kind of approach, right? It's going to be maybe some communication. Maybe you need to do a workshop with them. Maybe you send them a few videos around design ops. So a lot of the talks here, send them to some of your stakeholders so they can really understand what design ops is about. And I think a big part of this is the communication aspect. And it really comes to understanding your stakeholders. So with stakeholders, a lot of them are going to be quite senior. A lot of them are not going to have that much time either. Their scope is going to be quite wide. So they're not going to be in the detail. So you need to kind of work out how is the best way to actually talk to them. You don't want to be talking to them about the real detail components about stuff. You actually want to take high level, but you also want to know about, like, understand what they care about and speak to them in that language. I think with the communication side of it, what is their communication preferences? So to give you an example, with Kazoo, we had people that really liked Slack. We had people that really loved email. We had people that also loved Notion. So when we were thinking about those communication aspects, we had different communications that were hitting those areas to make sure that our key stakeholders were not missing out on that information. There's also things like think about video as well. So doing like a Loom video, keep it down to like 1 minute. Talking bullet points always really helps because they don't have time to process all this information. And then think about what type of communication, how often it should be. The next part of it is visibility, and that's really key. I think especially as designers, we work really at the beginning of a process. And when something's launched, it's all about congratulations to the engineers and the product people. How much more design ops? So what we need to do is just be visible in front of mind and making sure that we're doing it regularly. So think about iterations. That's what we're thinking about, right? So create visibility for wins. So think about maybe dashboards, reports, success stories, start collecting those. I always tell my team to create like a little bit of a hype list. I call it a hype list. And it's a list of wins. So things that you've collected where actually you can see design ops contributed to that. And take that, create whatever it is, whether it's a Notion page, just create that so that you can then report that back to your stakeholders. The other part of it is establishing meaningful metrics that show that impact over time. So if we're building for the long haul, we want to see from the beginning of our design system to that first evolution, to that next iteration, like how have we impacted the business? Because it is a journey. It's not just like a one and done, right? Highlight cost savings and time. I think one of the easiest ways, especially with design ops, is that cost saving and time element, because that's the whole point of a lot of these things, is to save time for the designers and the organization. Also show before and after comparisons that can resonate with leadership. We are designers, try and be visual. It always helps. And a bit of a communication framework. So you might flex this depending on who the stakeholder is. Hope everyone can see. So the first one is business impact. So think about those cost savings, time to market improvements. Even think about things like prototypes. Like how quickly was it for a designer to do a prototype because of the design system? User experience side of it, so consistency metrics, user satisfaction, task completion. So really work out like how can you measure some of this stuff? Like how can you add a measurement to that? And report on it. And then the technical benefits, so reduce technical debt, reduction in handover time as well. See how you can like record some of this stuff. And some of it might be as simple as doing a survey to engineers and getting that data. And then you've got, from a brand marketing perspective, there's benefits on that side as well, right? So you've got consistency, design time savings, and again, reduction in handover time. I think one of the key things when you have your stakeholders is make sure that you're having regular meetings with them. I think the FaceTime is really, really important. So think about that visibility. It's not just about like sending these emails and these other things. Think about how you can be visible in front of them and really talk about not just what your design system has done, but also your vision for your design system and design ops, and how is it going to evolve over time and move with the business. So talking about evolution, how do we evolve to meet the changing needs of the business? And I think one of the first things is to actually look at your design operations, and are you solving the problems that you set out to solve? Is it meeting those goals? And how are you measuring that impact? So at the beginning of your design system or your design ops teams, you should actually have some metrics. Like, how do we know we're going to be successful? Because ultimately, you've got that funding, and you need to show that you're going to be successful to the people that are funding it. And I think to break that out even further, what key metrics have you identified and that you're tracking and trending? And what were you trying to achieve? And it might be really basic, but I think it's worth writing it down and continuously going back to it. Again, if you're thinking about it like a product, like we're constantly thinking about, okay, is this product meeting the needs of our users? Is it doing the job that we set it out to do? And that's what we need to do consistently and constantly. And one of the things that we can do as leaders is really spot the problems on the horizon. So really look ahead. And you probably will spot those in the teams before anyone else does. And those will probably happen in those governance meetings that you'll have, right? You'll probably see some initial issues that are happening with engineers, and you're spotting them, but maybe you're not quite doing anything about it because it's just like, oh, I've spotted this. But those are key indicators that something's not quite right and that you need to kind of do a bit of a shift. So how can you help identify potential issues? So establishing governance and contribution models that scale. So as you scale, as the business scales, how do the governance that you put in place scale and contributes? I think we've discussed this earlier, but balancing that flexibility with consistency as well. So in order for it to scale, in order for it to evolve, you need that tension between flexibility and consistency. And I think the other thing is building in those feedback loops with implementation teams. So going beyond just those governance meetings, just send out a survey to the engineers. Product people, send out like a survey, 5 questions, and send that out regularly. And then again, you've got some more data that you can track over time. And you can see if there's any potential growing pains from design ops. Another way you could do it is also create a design system health framework. So again, this is going to be really dependent on your organization and how it works. But a framework is really good to identify the potential pain points. It also gives visibility to the team and how it's going to impact the team. It gives you data that you can present. So remember that communication framework that we talked about earlier. You can easily take some of this information and put in that framework. And then it creates a quantifiable way to measure the ongoing health of your design system. So in this example, it's divided into 5 areas. So the first one is adoption rate. We talked a lot about that today. So it's like percentage of your teams or products that are using the system. And I think with the health framework, you kind of want to work out what is the right threshold to show healthy versus needs some attention versus, okay, in dire straits, maybe cancerous or terminal. And then you've got your contribution velocity, so the frequency and volume of updates. Ideally, you want to get to a stage where you're not updating it that much, so you know that it actually is working for your teams. Then you've got resolution time as well, so when an issue does come up, how quickly do you resolve it? How long are other teams waiting on you? Documentation completeness. So this is the thing that always gets left by the wayside, but I think is very, very key and important. So how good is the quality of your documentation, and how much coverage do you have around that documentation as well? And then lastly, user satisfaction. So the users that are using your design systems, how are they actually using it? Are they happy with it? Is there problems? And it basically looks like this. So I've jazzed up a spreadsheet, essentially. But you have your different areas, put in your KPIs, and I would put in KPIs that work for your company. So really think about your business. and what KPIs you can come up with in design ops, and then create a score. So this is meant to be out of 100. In this example, what I've done is actually if you go below 70, that's the danger zone. But work out what that is for you, right? So like we said earlier, it was mentioned earlier, maybe 50% is actually okay. But yeah, you can kind of tweak this and adapt this, and I think this is a good example, but feel free to just take this and adapt this, and so it works for you and your organization. So I'm just wrapping up my talk, and I think the key takeaways that I want you to kind of take away is actually think about design ops as a living product, not just a one-off, one-time project. And I think that's how a lot of product people are thinking about it. So your job here is to really get them to think about it like a product and think about it as iterations. And if you start talking about it like that and changing that language, then the mindsets of people outside of design and engineering will actually get it. I think stakeholder alignment is really key. So really understand your stakeholders. If you are a leader in design ops in your current organization, spend a lot of time getting to know them and understanding them. Even knowing if they do golf or they have a dog is really, really important. Because when you see them in the kitchen, you can just talk about their dog, and then you can go into, can we just have a little one-to-one so I can talk about the good stuff that I'm doing, right? So really get to know them, have a cheat sheet, write notes, be a bit stalkerish. Because it's important, it's key, that's what works. And then remember your goals. Make sure that you're looking at those goals regularly. Make sure you're checking them as well. Do you need to pivot? Do you need to change some of those goals? How are you achieving those? And that is me.